I'm here with Betty Adams here with Grimsabr today. We're going to talk about Kaiju number 8.
Hello.
It's been a good 3 chapters, so a good month and a half, or even more since we've talked. I know it's been a month and a half since I talked with somebody.
Yeah, I think it's at least a month and a half.
So, first off, are you caught up? I know your life has been kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, I've been super busy. I haven't uploaded on my channel for almost 2 months now, and it's killing me. But my life has been insane. August is a terrible month for me as well because like every family member seems to have a birthday in this month, including my wife and my daughter. So yeah, it gets a bit hectic.
Okay, so I guess I kind of wanted. I've been alone with my own thoughts for a while, and I really wanted to hear your thoughts, which is why I kind of pushed for this meeting. So, why do you think? Okay, major spoilers for the latest chapter. Which is it? Chapter 42 or 43?
42 is the latest.
Major chapters first 42. Why do you think that Kafka can't transform?
Okay. So there could be, for me, there could be two things. Obviously, there could be a multitude more, but for me, it's two things. Either one, there's something going on with the little kaiju inside him. Something happened during that sort of confrontation where he managed to rip himself free of its control, and now it's left some kind of void in the control there, and he's unable to completely tap into its power. Either that, or the power is being held back from him in some way. The other thing I'm thinking is that he's honestly just having kind of like a mental block with everything that he's been through. I feel like it wouldn't be a stretch to assume that his actual psyche is taking a hit at this point, and he's finding it difficult to sort of get himself back together, as it were.
Yeah. So what do you think of the idea that number 9 is blocking the transformation somehow?
It's a possibility. That guy seems to be able to do anything.
And it would seem kind of on theme with number 9.
Especially considering what's happening.
Yeah, because I think that we're 42 chapters in. I think that the creators really found, I don't know quite how to say it. It's not exactly finding their niche, but the storytelling is starting to develop a distinct flavor of its own that's uniquely Kaiju number 8, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where you have a situation happens, and there's one big obvious thing that happens, like number 9 showing up, and it appears that that's the main driving force for everything that's going on around it in the scene. But then that actually is just a red herring to throw you off of what actually is happening, which was set up 10 chapters before.
Yeah, true.
And so I've become extremely suspicious of any direct apparent cause and effect.
Yeah, quite rightly.
In a given situation.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense as well, because we know that number 9 is after the power that's fallen into human hands, as it were, which at the moment we can assume probably pretty safely is Kaiju number 8. So it could definitely be a thing that within the preparations he's made to confront Kafka and Kaiju number 8, he has put some kind of block on his ability to transform.
Yeah. So just kind of, my brain's kind of bouncing all over the place, but Captain Nurumi. Here's a concept. I think there might be a name for it, but I can't kind of pull it up at the moment. This chapter kind of revealed, it's like a plot twist, but it's a character development twist, something that you really didn't see coming. Captain Nurumi is smart. He goes into battle, he's cunning, and he's probably the brains behind his unit as well. I hadn't realized this until I read chapter 42, but I'd been assuming that Hasegawa was the brains of the unit. Okay. And Hasegawa would basically set up the combat situation and then just basically point Nurumi at whatever needed to be destroyed the worst.
Yeah, that's a fair assumption to make.
Yeah, so that's what I assumed. But then we see Nurumi making battlefield analysis of the Aunt Kaiju on a level we've really only seen Kafka do. So it looks like Nurumi essentially has Hoshina's speed, Mina's power, and Kafka's brain. and he's just got that. He's kind of the full package when it actually comes to combat.
Yeah.
And so that's not exactly a plot twist.
But it's just some development that you didn't necessarily see coming.
And yet, like, a very good plot twist makes perfect sense in retrospect because he is the captain of the 1st Division.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love Nurumi. I'm slowly becoming more and more obsessed with him as the chapters go by. I knew I was going to like him from the moment he appeared, just because of how he looks. But that aside, yeah, he just. I think part of me knew that there would be more below the surface, because they bring him on the scene and paint him as like this powerhouse, which makes a lot of sense, being, you know, the forefront of the 1st Division. But it also, you know, when you think about it, like you said, in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense that he would have this kind of level of intelligence and ability to deduce what's going on in a situation, being the captain of the division. There's probably some criteria there that they have to follow as well, outside of just power. So yeah, I mean, I'm impressed with him every chapter, and I can't wait to see what happens next. I think some big things are going to come from him next chapter.
Yeah, and kind of on the Nurumi subject, someone pointed out that there's probably a good chance that we'll be getting a very significantly tragic backstory from him, because the creator does not create things randomly. The science is good, and oh man, I want to get into that later, but
that's your forte.
But the creator writes people very, very well, and shows a very deep understanding of human psychology. Yeah, and if you actually stack up everything we know about Nurumi so far, he's basically a hoarder, incredibly emotionally immature, but with a highly super developed threat analysis capacity, and quick to act in violence, and just those very turbulent, reactive emotions coupled with a very high intelligence. Those things together scream massive childhood trauma, a childhood where resources were extremely scarce, possible long-term starvation. And in this situation, in this world, even in a first world country like Japan, that's a very real possibility. So we were I was kind of batting this back and forth on a message board, and the concept that Nurumi might be very, very explainable by someone the kaiju took everything from him, and he had to maybe survive on his own for an extended period of time. That would explain the hoarding, the traumatic behaviors, the loss of parental figures in early age.
Yeah.
And and then there's just that, we've only gotten glimpses of it, but his relationship with General Director Shinomiya really, really fascinates me.
Oh, for sure. There definitely seems to be a bit more, there's more like a father figure and a son figure in that sense.
Yeah. And Shinomiya himself does not seem when he was first presented, I would not have thought that he was the kind to put up with Nurumi's nonsense.
No.
And yet he doesn't just put up with it, he calmly discusses things, and Shinomiya has the ability to talk Nurumi down, which, if you've ever dealt with someone like Nurumi, it's very rare.
Yeah.
And I think the creator really displayed like what a accomplishment that was in Shinomiya, to be able to deal with Nurumi successfully and get productive results out of it.
I think it's tantamount to probably the amount of respect that Nurumi has for Director General Shinomiya as well. I feel like no matter how he talks to him, he probably still respects him to such a high level that he can be talked down by him, and he will respect sort of decisions that he makes, even if he doesn't like them, and he'll be vocal about not liking them, but he'll still listen to them. And I think that's like the relationship they have. It's really cool.
Yeah. So another, again, just herring off in whatever direction my brain goes.
That's fine.
The world building these past 3 chapters has been very interesting. The Aunt Kaiju especially. They seem to be mentally treated different than the other kaiju we've seen. And it kind of starts to explain the overall role that kaiju play in these ecosystems. So the way Nurumi talked about them, the Aunt Kaiju are just there. They're considered a natural part of the ecosystem. They don't go out of the defense force doesn't seem to go out of their way to hunt them down. In fact, it sounds like the only interaction that humans have with these giant, dangerous kaiju are when you like accidentally bump into them in the tunnels.
Right.
And it seems a lot like these small, they're not exactly even smaller kaiju, but there are certain kaiju that are just considered a reality of the situation, not something to be hunted down and exterminated, just the same way that Anchorage, Alaska thinks of moose. Yeah, they can be annoying, but they were here first and we just got to live with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I really love about how the world is just developing through Kaiju number 8 as well. We keep learning little things, and it's never kind of just thrown at you. It's kind of just, it's told through the story in such a nice and smooth way. And I really enjoyed when he started to talk about how the ant-type kaiju, how them appearing on the surface is uncommon sight to begin with. And like you said, this kind of really paints a picture there, because before now we didn't have any information that kind of said that kaiju were just living amongst them without having to emerge from somewhere further away. It also kind of tells us that in terms of the kaiju, we already know obviously that they have the ranking system and how they read the fortitudes of the kaiju, but it also kind of now tells us that they also deem kaiju threats based on, I guess, how dangerous they are, or how what do I mean? I think like how
intrusive, invasive.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. So in the case of the ant-type kaiju, they don't see them as much of a threat initially, because they usually keep to themselves in their tunnels. They're not seen very often at all. So therefore, they're not as much of a threat to have to deal with all the time. So I quite like that concept, because it means we could see more from that in other ways.
Yeah. So again, just springboarding off onto a completely different direction plot-wise. So we've talked characters, we've talked world building. I guess it is time to talk a little plot. So Kafka, we don't know why he can't transform. My kind of thought on the matter was that the core was damaged, and it could.
True.
The Occam's razor says the part of him that allows the transformation was injured, and it's only been 5 days since he got out of that, since he woke up.
Yeah, it might not be completely fully healed yet.
Yeah, so that would be the simplest explanation. The explanation that I really want it to be is that assuming a level, it assumes a level of both sapience and innocence on the little guy's part.
Okay.
But I like it to be the little guy was fighting. As far as the little guy knew, he was fighting for their lives against the Daikaiju.
Right.
In the test.
Mm-hmm.
And Kafka responded by lashing out and trying to kill him, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so now the little guy doesn't know what will happen the next time it transforms to fight a Daikaiju.
Okay, so it's kind of throwing a tantrum.
Throwing a tantrum, or just scared. So if he transforms to fight another Daikaiju, is Kafka going to try and kill them again?
Right.
And so from the perspective of something with a childlike intelligence, it makes sense not to transform. And I couldn't help noticing that the partial transformation went just fine.
Yes, exactly.
And even the full transformation was going fine until Kaiju number 9 was detectable. So Kafka was transforming into Kaiju number 8, and then the energy field of a Daikaiju appears, and suddenly he can't transform anymore.
Yeah, perhaps.
Which could be Kafka's mental block. I'd like it to be the little guy's mental block.
I do quite like that theory.
Because the reason I want it to be that over just the injury or Kafka's mental block is that the resolution would have to involve Kafka communicating with the little guy.
That would be really interesting.
And then, of course, Kafka would have to show understanding and compassion towards this creature that has messed up his life on a fundamental level and hurt him in ways it cannot possibly imagine. Mm-hmm. And that I think that thing of compassion would be in harmony with what we've seen of the rest of the themes of the series so far. Yeah. But that's what I Occam's razor says Core's injured. Kafka's just trying to push himself through an injury, and that's the problem. But that's kind of the one I want it to be. But then there's the consequences beyond the fact that he can't transform. Because director Shinamaya laid out in no uncertain terms over a large number of panels, meaning a pretty big investment for the story. Kafka's life depends on his usefulness.
Yes.
And if he's maintained the ability to transform partially, he now carries the risk of transforming and berserking at any time. But if he can't control it, he's no longer useful. Mm-hmm. So how's the story going to handle that going forward, do you think?
I just think the whole situation that Kafka now finds himself in super interesting. Those panels around when his transformation fails were so impactful as well, because as it fails, all of the face expressions from the people most important to that situation they were just like blank dead face, like they didn't really show any emotion, but it was clear that everything was running through all their heads at the same time. Like, the transformation failed. What does this mean for Kafka? Does this mean his usefulness is 0? What's going to happen next? I think the thing with as much as I like your theory as well around the little guy, one of the things that kind of make me really lean towards the transformation failing because of a mental block or something with Kafka's psyche is how much they keep pressing on the fact that just before he transforms and when he's using the partial transformation, he keeps going over it in his head how the last time he transformed, he lost control and he went berserk, and he was actively trying to avoid fully transforming because he didn't want that to happen again. And I think without realizing, in a way, he's now blocking himself from using it subconsciously. And now he's just in such a predicament. It's just, unless he can find a way to get out of this or still prove himself useful, things really aren't looking good for him. But as number 9 has turned up as well, things really aren't looking good for him anyway. So what happens next what happens to Kafka with the Defense Force might be irrelevant if they can't do something about number 9.
Yeah. So do you see the Defense Force managing to fight off number 9, or do you see Kafka getting kidnapped?
Okay. So I've actually got a video written for this chapter coming out at some point, so I've talked about it a bit in there, but I'll talk about it here as well. So one theory I see is that he will be kidnapped by number 9, but with Nurumi there, I also feel like there would be some kind of... So my thoughts on it are that the way I see it right now is Nurumi is strong enough to defeat number 9. I still think, even with... Obviously, we haven't seen the power of number 9 with this new kind of ant transformation that he's got going on, but I still think Nurumi probably exceeds his power. That being said, the reason why I can kind of see Kafka being kidnapped is because that would limit what Nurumi can do. If number 9 manages to successfully capture Kafka, then he would then become a hostage, and it would be much more difficult for Nurumi to be able to do anything about it. So, I mean, that's one thing, but then there's also the possibility that he gets captured and Nurumi just tries to wipe them both out at once, kind of like an asset going into enemy hands. And if you can't get it back, you destroy it. I don't know. There's so many ways it could go, but I definitely think a kidnapping is on the horizon.
Okay, so you're focusing on Nurumi because he's the one who's right there. But one thing that stuck out to me about this chapter is when we see the old guys back in the temporary headquarters, so we know they're close.
True.
All of the rest of them are in their dress uniforms.
Okay.
But except for Director General Shinamaya, he is in his combat suit, coats off, he's ready to go. And you get 2 images of his face on page 17. And it's when the deputy director, old Baldy, he asks, why won't he transform? And the camera zooms in on Shinamaya's face, and you can see that his suit's powered up. He's got the extra ring around his eyes. And he is, at that moment, fully suited, powered up, ready to go into combat.
You're right. You're absolutely right. He does have his suit on. He does have his suit on, and his other council members don't. So that is very interesting. I didn't notice that.
And the only reason that they would he has the same expression on his face in the close up as he does. So the only reason to do that close up was to display the second ring in his iris, meaning that he has his suit fully charged. So I think that unless there's a major plot twist coming, which we can never rule out with Matsumoto, I think we're going to get to see Shinomiya jump into combat here.
I'd love to see it. I love that guy.
But how do you think that? Because I'm definitely feeling you with Nurumi having to make the decision of does he pursue number 9 at the risk of taking out Kafka? Does he take out Kafka? That's definitely a dynamic we're going to see. But we also have Shinomiya Sr. on one hand, ready to charge into battle and start swinging. But we also have Shinomiya Jr. on the east side, dicing through the ants. Now, she has the military discipline to stay in her zone. I think the story could easily keep her out of it just by saying she knows she has to stay in her zone and complete her mission first.
Especially with the squad commander there to kind of keep her in check. Yeah.
But the rest of the members of Division 1 are no slouches. And so I definitely think we're going to get to see Shinomiya Sr. in action.
I totally didn't notice his suit, and I would love to see that. I would honestly love to see that.
Okay, so
it'd be even more interesting if he did jump in as well, because there's no way, I really can't see him being fully recovered from his clash with Kaiju number 8. So he definitely wouldn't be fighting at his full strength. It'd be really interesting to see.
I'm pretty sure that we know he's gonna die at some point.
It just feels like it, doesn't it? He's that kind of character.
He's a character that's put in there to make us love him, so that his death hurts all the more.
I think if and when they do kill him off, I think it will be huge. It will be a big deal.
Yeah. And someone pointed out to me that his fighting style is pretty much 1-to-1 Kafka's fighting style.
Yeah,
and he's basically the previous protagonist. And so someone says that his death will signal Kafka stepping into his own as the hero of the series.
Yeah.
And kind of Kafka will end up replacing him.
That's why I would love a prequel series with Director General Shinomiya even more.
Oh yeah.
But I definitely think if his death does inevitably happen, it will be at such a point where the loss of his life would be extremely impactful to a lot of characters. So we already know that it'd be impactful to, Kikoru and Narumi. But I think if it got to a point in the story before they kill him off where he's also impacted Kafka a lot in some way more than he has now, that would be quite interesting. I think the more characters' lives that man has impacted, the bigger it will hit us as readers as well.
Just a little thing that I noticed, the deputy director, who's clearly very close to Shinomiya, he doesn't use honorifics. He's pretty close to his daughter, obviously, as we've seen.
Are we talking about the bald guy, yeah?
Yeah, that's the deputy director.
Yep.
Is the only other person calling Kafka he.
True.
And it's illustrated because the scientists are either calling him Kaiju number 8 or it.
Yeah, I make a point of that as well. In terms of Kafka's humanity, it's almost like he's completely lost it now because no one is referring to him as Kafka other than the people you just pointed out.
Yeah. So another kind of cycling back to why Kafka can't transform. One of the flavors of this manga is hiding super important world building plot points under physical humor jokes. The nipple peeing was our first indication.
Your favorite thing. Nipple peeing.
I was like, why? Because it didn't make sense to me at first in that chapter. I'm like, these are short chapters. why that many panels for a
That's
body
like
humor?
your Kaiju number 8 obsession, the nipple
But
pee.
yeah, and then it turns out, because it didn't satisfy me as an author. Why put that in there? Why waste that many panels? Then it turns out that was our first indication that the kaiju overheated.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other thing that really hasn't had a satisfactory explanation yet is the massive amount of panels that was devoted to the dad bod jokes.
Oh, yeah.
Right, while they were all in the bathroom and they were all mocking his plump pudgy belly there. And if you look at him between chapters 32 and 42, the dad bod is gone, especially, and it disappears suddenly. And basically after Kaiju number 8 punches the bomb. So suddenly Kafka, he's trim, he's svelte, he's tiny. And it's like he just lost 20 or 30 pounds. So, which kind of leads me to my next theory, that it might not be that the core is injured, but that the fuel to power the massive energy readings, the probably higher than 10-point energy readings that Kaiju number 8 can sustain, comes from burning the fuel from Kafka's body.
Okay, yeah.
And the reason that you starve to death, basically, because your body can continue eating your own fat for a long time. It takes, even the weakest, sickliest human generally takes 3 weeks to starve to death. And unfortunately, we know for certain that healthy, strong young humans, like Kafka's age, can go up to 60 to 80 days with no food before they'll actually die from starvation. But that's because your body has it can eats your fat, and once all of your fat is gone, it starts to cannibalize your brain, because your brain is fat. And what you actually die from is your body starting to cannibalize the important fats that you can't lose. But there are safeties put in your body. One is hunger, of course, but there are safeties to prevent your body from eating too much fat that kick in. And so what I'm thinking is that Kafka might have run out of burnable fat, and instead of a mental block, it's a physical block. Kafka's body is no longer letting the little guy take fat to make energy to summon the mass, apparently from the pocket dimension, if that makes sense. But yeah, Kafka can't transform because he's out of fuel.
My man needs to eat some carbs.
Yeah. Boil some potatoes and pack it on like a pig.
Yeah, that dude needs some more calories. No, that's a good theory. Yeah, I can see that. Because especially after losing control like that, we don't know I suppose they showed us actually that whole ordeal must have taken a massive toll on his body. So we don't know, sort of, other than what we can physically see, what other impacts it had. So yeah.
So now here's one thing. This chapter made me so happy as an ecologist. How much do you know about the mycorrhizal networks in ecology? The internet of the forest?
None.
Okay, so
I'm sure you're about to educate me.
Okay, the simplest version of this. Have you ever heard of the spotted owl?
I think so.
It
sounds familiar for some reason.
It's a famous bird. It is a cute, adorable little owl. It comes when you call it. You can go off into the forest, and if you can mimic its call enough, a perfectly wild owl who has never seen a human will come up and look at you and say, "You are the weirdest looking owl I've ever seen." But anyway, right. The point being, it lives as part of a network. You have the Douglas fir tree, which is the most common wood tree in North America. And it has a fungus that grows in its roots. Think of that as the fungus here in this metaphor is Kaiju number 9. Okay. And then there's a flying squirrel. And the squirrel eats the fungus. And then the squirrel lives up in the trees, and the owl eats the squirrel.
Okay.
And then the owl lives in the Douglas fir trees. It's a very picky animal. It's endangered because it's so picky. It really can't live anywhere else.
Okay.
So the owl picks up the squirrel, carries it away, eats the squirrel. The squirrel body drops fungus spores. The spores spread. The spores hook up with a Douglas fir tree. The fir tree uses the fungus to draw nutrients from the soil. It's all a big network.
Okay.
And for the longest time, we thought that the only thing that the fungus did was transfer nutrients from the soil to the tree, from the tree to itself.
Okay.
But actually, we now know that the fungus in the ground, everywhere, not just forests, communicate to plant. So that if you put a parasite on a plant on one side of the forest, every plant in the forest will express the chemical defense against that parasite, that the one that has the parasite on it. So the plant at one end of the forest is talking to all the other plants.
Okay.
If a tree gets sick, the forest will make a decision whether to drain its nutrients and let it die more quickly, or to send it nutrients and to heal it.
Okay.
So you have there, and all of that is mediated through these fungus that live underground. Then you have the weird ones like the cordyceps fungus. They crawl into ants' bodies, take over the ants' bodies, and alter their behavior, primarily making the ants come to the surface and interact with larger organisms in ways that they otherwise wouldn't.
So like what we're seeing with Kaiju number 9.
Exactly like what we're seeing like Kaiju number 9. Now the
Awesome.
fungus does it to reproduce.
Yeah.
The fungus needs to be like in the gut of a cow to reproduce.
Right.
And then it reproduces when the cow poops. But
Awesome.
to do that, the fungus infects the ant. The ant climbs up a stalk of grass. The cow eats the grass and the ant incidentally. The fungus reproduces in the cow's intestines and then comes out the other end in another life phase. So this was just exquisitely good science. And so
it never ceases to impress me within Kaiju number 8. We've said this so many times in previous chats with just how much research that their team must do before putting their pen to paper.
Yeah, I mean, Matsumoto has shown an understanding of physics, military tactics, human psychology, and now advanced ecology. So this is it's pretty amazing.
It's super cool, especially for someone like me who doesn't really, that's not my area of expertise. So having someone like you being able to explain that to me and put things into perspective makes it so cool.
It is, and likewise, you really offer that's why I really like talking to you. You really offer a perspective that I just would not have come at it from.
It's good to have different minds talking about things, you know?
Yeah.
The book from author Betty Adams, Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data, is a humorous look at human behavior through the eyes of aliens. This book is arranged in separate reports or essays, documenting the experiences with humanity through the lens of the aliens who have to interact with them. This anthology of short stories and vignettes from alien points of view highlights some of humanity's quirks we can all relate to. Author Betty Adams captures how strange and interesting humans can really be. This is a fun collection of stories you will really get a kick out of. Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data, from author Betty Adams. Order your copy right now on Amazon.